welcome back to another episode of Finklecast. In today's episode, we are going to go over Season 6 and the series finale of Peaky Blinders, followed by Kenobi Episode 6 and the season finale. I just finished watching Peaky Blinders Season 6 for the second time last night, and I have to say my opinion has changed. After the first time watching, I was a little bit upset. Not really upset, but I was confused in why Peaky Blinders went in a different route. But then after watching it this second time, my opinion has completely changed. Now in this last season, it is a very different atmosphere of Peaky Blinders. There's still a little bit of flair of the original Peaky Blinders over the past 5 seasons, but things are a little different. As per usual, if you've gotten to this point, there will be spoilers, so stop now, plug your ears, and come back when you've watched the season. I will try my best to not give an entire synopsis of this entire season like I have done in the past for other things. I will touch on certain things that stood out to me and I want to explain, and then I will go forward. Right off the bat, in the first episode of this season, it takes minutes after the last episode in Season 5. Obviously, the assassination attempt against Mosley was foiled, and a repercussion of that is that 3 bodies were laid at the feet of Thomas Shelby. Now, it wasn't because these people who killed the 3 in mention are allies of Mosley. It was because they needed Mosley alive, and they needed to stop Thomas Shelby's plan. Now, as we saw in the 5th season, Amarama Gold was killed at the end of the 5th season, along with the person who was supposed to be shooting Mosley from the sniper's perch. But the 3rd person that was killed was Polly Gray. Now, they had to do this because in real life, the person and the actress who played Polly Gray had passed away, so they had to find a way to kill her off in the series. It is extremely sad that she did pass away because her character in the show was one of the leading characters and one of the best characters in Peaky Blinders. They then had a gypsy funeral where they stick her body within one of the caravans along with pictures and stuff, and they set it on fire. And Michael, her son, is now trying to plot his revenge against Thomas Shelby. The show then fast forwards 4 years, which is the year that the rest of the show takes place in. Now, for the sake of time, I'm just going to touch on a few things that stood out to me. Within this season, Thomas Shelby is very different. For the past 4 years, he had not touched 1 drop of alcohol, and he swore off drinking because he needed to be focused, and he claimed that when he was drinking, he was not himself, and he acted out in his normal Thomas Shelby ways. So right off the bat, that's what kind of didn't ruin the season for me, but it didn't make it as good as I wanted it to be because he was not his peak Thomas Shelby self. He was still smart and clever, and he had very sneaky ways in the way he wanted to do things with his business deals, and he was still Thomas Shelby, but he wasn't the Thomas Shelby we all know. Also, throughout this season, he suffers a lot of traumatic things. He loses his daughter, Ruby, and he goes off the deep end trying to find a cure for that, and he thoroughly believes that she was bewitched and there was a curse upon her, and that's why she was going to die and why she did die. And then a doctor also tells him that he is going to die himself because the same sickness that his daughter had is now within his head in the form of, I'm guessing, like a tumor. So the last couple episodes of the season, he thinks he's going to die. So I think about episode 2 or 3, Ruby falls sick, and then episodes 5 and 6, he falls sick. So most of this season is him dealing with a lot that's going on. Plus, he's trying to do business deals with a gangster from Boston that is related to Michael's wife, and then he's also dealing with Mosley and his wife, which is a very huge agitation, while also dealing with his daughter being sick and passing away, and then him being sick, and then him going to pass away, while also trying to keep his marriage intact with Lizzie. So it is a complete whirlwind tornado in Tommy's life in this season, and it's a very different Tommy that we see. One nice addition in this season is that Tommy finds a long-lost son that he never knew he had. Once Ruby passes away, there is a scene where he is talking to John Shelby's widow, Esme, and she tells him about his son that he had with a woman back in 1914. His son is named Duke, and he isn't the best character in the show, but he was a pretty cool addition, and I liked him in this season. During this entire season, Michael is in prison until episode 6 because Thomas gave him a bag filled with cocaine, and he was arrested because Thomas Shelby reported to the police that he had a bag of cocaine, so now he's in prison the whole season. But in episode 6, he is released, and he is going to try to kill Thomas Shelby. Now, I believe they are in Canada, and Thomas goes to meet Michael and his associates, and they're going to make a deal that will give Thomas Shelby $5 million. Now, Michael has placed a bomb in a trunk to explode at the exact time they'll be getting into the car. But, of course, Thomas Shelby is not that stupid, and he brought Johnny Dogs with him, and they moved the bomb into a different car where all the associates got into, and when the bomb exploded, it eliminated all of Michael's associates. Michael then comes out of the tavern and is showing the face of sheer disbelief that he literally just lost. Thomas then walks out of the car that did not explode and is pointing a gun at Michael and is trying to understand why Michael was going to do this. He didn't really understand, and then Michael explains that the way he sees it, Thomas killed Polly, and that Thomas is a poison to the entire family. So then Thomas does what he does best and just shoots Michael in the head and says something he has been saying this entire season, which is, "I have no limitations." It then goes toward where he is saying his goodbyes to his family. It seems that only a few of his family know that he is going to die because his sister does not understand. Ada doesn't understand why he's saying goodbye in this way. There's one scene where Tommy turns away and starts to cry a little bit, and she thinks, well, you're going to be back soon, so like, how long are you going to be away? And I think in her mind, she's slowly understanding how he's saying goodbye and why he's saying goodbye, but she doesn't verbally express it. Her expressions are kind of showing like, holy crap, I don't think he's coming back. And then it skips to him in the middle of this open land where he is in a caravan. He is taking off his jewelry, and he's setting his pictures, and he's going to shoot himself in the caravan. But then he sees his daughter that passed away, Ruby, running to him in the middle of the field. So he runs to her, and he seems like, am I already dead? Am I here now? And then she goes, you're not dead. You're not dying. You're not sick. And then it's all coming together, and Thomas is like, no, I am sick. She goes, no, light a fire. Get warm. So when he goes over to the fire, he sees the half-burnt newspaper, and there's a picture of Mosley and his new wife's wedding on the newspaper. But while he's looking at this picture, he realizes the face of the doctor that told him he's going to die. And he's connecting all of the dots. So then eventually it switches to a scene where that doctor is walking out of his house, and he's telling the person by the car to put petrol in the car. And when he walks over, Tommy's there, and he puts a gun to this guy's head, and he's explaining that he knows the plan, that Mosley wanted to kill Tommy, but they all realized that nothing can kill Tommy but Tommy himself. And he's explaining this, and this is where Tommy, from all the other seasons, is here at the end, and it was a great scene. The only thing that I wish would have happened is he wasn't going to kill him, and he did not kill him, but he should have done something very Peaky Blinders-ish, which was he should have taken off his cap, and he should have cut his face, and have said something like, tell the rest of them I'm coming for them, or something. But as always, Tommy is smarter than anyone in the show, and he's the smartest of his family. And even though in the beginning of this series he was very quick to actions, he is now more of the mind game sense of things. So the show ends, and he's riding off in the distance, and now I have heard rumors they are trying to make a movie. They have to, because there is a cliffhanger now, and within this movie he has to go after Mosley. This entire season totally threw away everything that had happened with Mosley in the beginning, and Mosley is in this season, but they totally disregarded all of that because of I believe it was the NRA said that they wanted to keep tabs on him, on Mosley, and they did not want Thomas to kill him off just yet. They wanted to figure out his plans and maybe try to foil them, and that's why I believe the NRA killed 3 of the Peaky Blinders. Aside from that, the season was really good. I enjoyed it. It was better that I watched it that second time. That first time I watched it, it wasn't really hitting for me. I think it was because right after I watched all of the other seasons, and I went right into that, and it just wasn't the same vibe, so it threw me off. But once I watched it the second time, it was really good. Alfie Solomons is in Season 6, and he's really good. He doesn't play a huge role, but he's still like that side friend slash foe with Tommy, but in this he's more of a friend, and I enjoyed his part. The only thing that kind of bothered me was that Arthur Shelby is his role that he played in season 2. Season 1, he was building the character, and they're showing you the character of Arthur Shelby. And in season 2, he's kind of losing his mind. He's going nuts. He kills one of the boxer kids. Then season 3, he finds his wife, and he's more calm. Season 4, he shows up full tilt and is peak Arthur. In season 5, he's still peak Arthur. But this one, he just goes muddy parts and the sane parts of Arthur Shelby. Towards the end of this season, actually at the end of the season, he does redeem himself, and he's in his right mind. And he actually exacts revenge on the people who killed Polly. So that was good, and I'm glad they redeemed him at the end, because it was like, we already did this, we've already seen this, we don't need to see it again. But I guess when you go 6 seasons in a show, you have to kind of not rewrite things, you have to repeat things again. All in all, it was a good season. I don't know if it was a good series ender. I'm excited to see what they're going to do for the movie, because there has to be a movie. That was a huge cliffhanger, so we got to wrap things up. But I'm excited to see what they're going to do, and I hope, unlike a lot of other shows, they are able to make a really good ending to Peaky Blinders. This show is like a top 5 show for me, so I hope they're not going to ruin the ending. Now, I know that I skipped a lot of things, and I'm guessing this could be a lot of confusion for you listening to this podcast episode for Peaky Blinders, but I wanted to hit on the points that stood out to me and the parts that I really enjoyed and things that kind of bothered me. And if you want to fill in the details, I really encourage you to watch this last season. If you do like Peaky Blinders, definitely got to give this season a watch. And if you haven't watched Peaky Blinders, I would say give the show a try. It is a different show. If you like gangster stuff, this is the show for you. And now on to the Obi-Wan Kenobi section of this episode. As you all know, the final episode in the season finale of Obi-Wan Season 1 is finally aired, and it was just wow. I'm going to try to keep my complaints and nitpicking to a minimum, but there are a few things that kind of bothered me, but overall this episode was just as good as the 5th one. The only thing that I wish Disney would do is make every episode of a series like Kenobi be as good as the 5th and 6th episode, instead of having the first few episodes be very mediocre and then it feel like the rest of the season is making up for what happened in the beginning. But overall, this last episode was just so good and so entertaining. Some of the lines were just perfect and spot on. There were a few things that were questionable, but it did not take away from how good this episode really was. Once again, I'm going to be talking about spoilers, so plug your ears. This final episode closed everything up very nicely and brought the battle we were waiting for between Obi-Wan and Vader. There were whispers here and there that this battle was not going to happen, but I'm very happy that it did, because if it didn't, it wouldn't have matched up with The New Hope, where Vader says, "I was but the learner, now I am the master." The last battle they had, he totally wiped Obi-Wan out, scorching him and dragging him through the fire. And in this episode, they had their final battle, and Obi-Wan was pulling out punches that I didn't even know he had as a Jedi. It was insane. The one thing is kind of weird is that from the first episode, he was very shut off from the Force, and then within a 6th episode transition, he is like peak Obi-Wan that we've never seen before. At one point in time, he's using the Force, and he's levitating like 50, 60 large rocks and just shooting them at Vader with the Force. It was insane. Obviously, this battle was very different from that of Revenge of the Sith. Obi-Wan is much older, Anakin's older, and now Anakin is in the Vader suit, so he doesn't have as much movement as he did in Revenge of the Sith. But they found a way where it was a very good battle. The only thing that was missing was the John Williams theme. There was no real Star Wars music in the background. It was some kind of generic battle theme song that didn't fit with Star Wars. Eventually, Obi-Wan gains his master strength and he takes down Vader. He's slashing him, and eventually he slices off half of his mask like Ahsoka did to Vader in Rebels. Great scene. You see Hayden Christensen as bald and burnt Vader within the mask, and they start talking to each other, and Obi-Wan is just apologizing because he's so sorry for what happened, and Anakin assures him, You did not fail me. You did not kill Anakin Skywalker. And then with this sadistic grin, Anakin says, I did. Very creepy. And then Obi-Wan walks away, just leaving Vader. And then Darth Vader's yelling, Obi-Wan! Because obviously we can't kill off Vader, but also Obi-Wan can't kill him. He pities him. He feels so bad that this is what he has become. In this episode, Reva survived. I don't know how she's doing it. She's walking like she never got stabbed, and she is perfectly fine. She's walking around, and she goes to seek out Luke. Now, this whole thing was not what I thought was going to be in the leak. She actually went to find Luke and to exact, as she says, justice for what she had experienced and what she lost from Vader. So she's going there to kill Luke. And Owen and his wife, they're fighting Reva, and they get knocked out. They lose. They don't die, of course. That would have broken canon. But then she's chasing Luke through the Dune Sea, gets to a point where she uses the Force and twists the rock that he's running on, and he slips and he becomes unconscious. And now this is where she is fighting herself, because she ignites her lightsaber and she's trying to make herself kill Luke to exact this justice, but she can't. She's not Anakin, and she's not going to go to the dark side in that way. And she carries Luke back. And when she takes Luke back, it's mirroring the scene where Anakin is holding his mother in Attack of the Clones. And you're like, there's no way. Obviously, Luke isn't dead. And for anyone who thought he was dead, you crazy. But no, he's not dead. She puts him down, and Owen picks him up, and he wakes up, and they're fine. And then Obi-Wan has a conversation with Reva, and they're talking, and she's like, I couldn't do it, you know. Obviously, you couldn't do it. You can't kill off Luke Skywalker when he was a kid. What is this, multiverse of madness? But that is the last that we see of Reva in this season. I don't know what Disney has planned for the character of Reva. I don't know if they're going to have her in Season 2 of Kenobi, because I guess they might be making a Season 2. Or maybe she'll be in the Andor series. She could possibly be in Ahsoka. I'm not sure, but we'll see what happens. At the beginning of this season, I did not like Reva, and I still kind of don't. I'm not a huge fan of the character. Obviously, this show is to make her be redeemed for the things she did and her journey, and they did redeem her character at the end, and the way they made her redeem herself wasn't that bad, and I don't mind her character as much. Still not my favorite character, though. Fast forward to a scene on Mustafar where Vader is now in his castle. This is after the battle between Vader and Obi-Wan. He is talking to someone, and as soon as you see the cape and the cloak, you know exactly who it is. They pan around, and it is the one and only Darth Sidious. So good. Ian McDiarmid, who plays Darth Sidious, reprised the role, and it was so nice to see. Now, to the topic of Leia, there were a lot of whispers and theories that maybe they'll get her mind wiped because it wouldn't match up as far as New Hope is concerned, but I didn't really think of why she needed to be mind wiped. It didn't really make sense, and she did not get mind wiped. She was able to safely arrive back at home in Alderaan, and after all is said and done, Obi-Wan goes to visit to make sure she's all right and that she got there safe. And he actually goes on to tell Leia about her parents. He does not tell her their names, but he describes Padme and then describes Anakin, and is telling her that she has both of them in her, and that she has the qualities of Padme and of Anakin. And he goes into detail, and it's really nice, and I liked it. And then he says goodbye. And when he says goodbye, Leia says the Anakin line from The Phantom Menace, "Will I ever see you again?" And it was just one of those mirrored things that just fit perfectly. Now, one thing that does not make sense to me is that she knows who Kenobi is, and she asks for Obi-Wan Kenobi specifically by name in The New Hope. But the one thing I don't get is that when Obi-Wan died, Luke was pretty upset. Leia didn't bat an eye. She showed no emotion, and that's because when George Lucas made A New Hope, he was not anticipating someone making an Obi-Wan Kenobi series with Leia in it as 10 years old. But that's something that the people who are making Kenobi should have taken into consideration. They got to pick out every single detail because they know the people who are fans are definitely going to notice something like that. And it's like, if she knew Kenobi all those years ago, wouldn't she be just the slightest bit of upset, you know? I don't know. To wrap things up, Obi-Wan goes to visit Owen Lars and Luke at Owen's home, and he brings the ship that he was trying to gift him in the beginning of the series, and he tells Owen, you know what? You're right. He just needs to be a kid. And then Owen says, do you want to meet him? And then Obi-Wan walks over, hands him the ship, or I actually don't think he hands him the ship, but then he goes, hello there, and says the classic Obi-Wan line. Then it switches to a scene where he is, I think, riding his camel-like Tatooine creature into the Beggar's Canyon from Phantom Menace, and then you see the Force ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn. So good. Probably the best part of the episode, by far. Liam Neeson obviously came back. Now, some were saying that they might have deep-faked Liam Neeson onto someone else, and then Liam Neeson just did the voiceover, but I like to think that Liam Neeson played the part, and it was so good. He goes, I thought you didn't hear me, and Liam Neeson goes, I heard you, but you just weren't ready to see me. Kind of confusing because Luke didn't do anything special to see Obi-Wan Return of the Jedi. Rey didn't do anything special to be able to see Luke in the Rise of Skywalker, so I'm not sure what Obi-Wan had to do to be able to see Qui-Gon. But hopefully they'll explain things better if they have a season 2 of the show, and I'm very excited to see what's going to happen if they do. Overall, I'm going to have to give this show probably like a 6, maybe 6.5 out of 10. It wasn't the best show I've ever seen, and it wasn't the best form of Star Wars content. The last 2 episodes were awesome. I love them. But that wasn't enough to make up the show for me. There were still a lot of things I didn't like, things that should have been wrapped up in a quicker amount of time, and a lot of things they should have added into it. I might go over that on a different episode in this podcast, I might not, but there was definitely things that I did not like in the show, as you all know by listening through my complaints over the past 6 weeks. I'm definitely going to have to watch this show in its entirety all the way through again. I find that binge watching shows all the way through, you can gain different perspectives, you can gain different opinions, and maybe I'll find out that I like the show more than I did. I mean, now that we know Reva's full story and that she isn't the most annoying character in the world, and then they gave her some more of a development, and now that we know that the Grand Inquisitor isn't dead, things are different for me now. And maybe now that I'm not watching a full week between each episode and forming complaints and things in my head, I might like the show better. But that is a wrap for another Star Wars show. Soon we'll have Andor coming, and then Ahsoka, I believe, is the end of this year, and then much more to come from the Star Wars world. I thank you for tuning in to another episode. If you have any thoughts or your own opinions or what you think about this series and you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a comment what you think. Please like and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next Finklecast.